For those of you that don't know me, my name's James Dawson and I'm responsible for the training arm of Odin Solutions. We've been delivering training now for a couple of years very successfully, and we're able to offer content author, administrator and developer training. It's a shame that I can't be with you in person, but I thought I'd put together a little video to share with you some of my ideas and the experiences that I've picked up through those last couple of years delivering training. Then hopefully you'll get some understanding of the approach that we take when we're putting together packages for our clients. And if you're thinking of producing training yourself, hopefully some of the things that I'm going to talk about will enable you to make those far more successful. The first thing to consider when putting together a package for developer training is a good understanding of the installation itself. So you need to identify what the content types are that are in place, which are the ones that are most commonly used, what templates have been created, and again, which ones of those are used most commonly. Then to extend that, it's worthwhile getting an understanding of what the future aims are for the installation and for the development. So what planned content types are there, what planned changes are there to templates. That way you can begin by teaching the basic principles of development within the CMS, but also you can use it as a platform for those future intentions and that future development which is going to take place within the client. It's important to have the right physical environment within which to deliver the training. Ideally, you want a dedicated training room with equipment set out for the delegates to use and presentation equipment there. Somewhere that's quiet, somewhere that's out of the way, so there aren't going to be too many distractions for people taking part. I remember when I did some training at one of our university clients, we'd been given one of the student resource rooms to use for the training. The delegates arrived, we locked the door, began the session. What we didn't realise was there was another door into the room at the back, and about halfway through a couple of students snuck in through this door, sat down at one of the PCs, started doing a bit of work. Not too much of a problem there. But the training went on, more and more students came in, and before too long we got 20 or so students across the back of the room. They were talking on their mobile phones, some of them were having conversations about the bars that they went to last night, the girls that they were interested in. Made it very difficult for the people taking the training to concentrate, and it was very disruptive. And I certainly wasn't in a position where I could ask these people to shut up and get out. So it's important to make sure you've got the right physical environment and that you've certainly covered all of your exits. Likewise, try and avoid basements. I've been in rooms in basements where you've got no natural light, they're dingy, cramped, people don't have the correct presentation equipment, so people are crowded around computers trying to see what's going on. And if you're in a room that's not particularly appealing, you're not going to want to stay in there particularly long, and so you're not going to engage with the training. Now, in terms of the size of the room, with developer training you're usually working with much smaller groups, so it's not such an issue as it is with the content author training, but you still do need somewhere that's slightly removed, where there aren't going to be so many interruptions, and where the delegates can concentrate on what they're doing, because obviously you're talking about some quite technical aspects. The virtual environment used for the training is just as important. Ideally, you're going to want to have a separate training environment. If not, you can always use your development server. But you have to make sure that the development server isn't being used by other people at the same time. I was at a client as a consultant, and they had some content author training taking place on the development box at the same time as developers were working on bug fixes, deploying new content types, and it caused all kinds of problems for the people taking the training and for the lady that was actually trying to deliver it. So If you are using a development box for your training, make sure that there's nobody else working on it at the same time. The thing to be mindful of with developer training and the environment that you use, for number one, you need to make sure that it's a relatively recent cut of the system, so it's up to date and it's got any new development that's been done already installed on it and any patches have been deployed already. During the course of the training, you're going to be creating lots of new content types, lots of new templates, and they're going to have all kinds of naming conventions reflecting the people that have been creating them. So you need to be aware that all of these things have got to be tidied up afterwards. So if you are using a development box, you need to strip those out. That's why a training box is ideal, because obviously you can just overwrite that at the end of the session and then it's ready to go for when it's needed again. Reflecting the people. It's important to make sure that the equipment and the software used for the training is up to the job. Generally speaking, developers have pretty good spec PCs on their desks, but you need to make sure, if you're using a training room for the delivery, that the machines that are in there are going to be up to the job. So check the software that's on there, make sure there's no non-standard browsers and old versions of Java, and also make sure that all the development tools are installed and that you've got the necessary connections through to the back-end databases and through to the training or development server, whichever one it is that you're connecting to. It's very important to focus on the users. You need to get a clear understanding of what it is the developers are going to be expected to do on a day-to-day basis within the CMS once they've completed the training. So, first thing to do is we teach the basics. We get them up and running with all of the basic skills and give them an understanding of all of the basic components within development of the CMS system. Next, through talking with development team leaders and also in some cases with the business, we need to understand what their expectations are of what their developers will be able to do, and as mentioned previously, we need to get some understanding as to what the future direction and future intentions are going to be. That way we can make sure that the developers are equipped with the skills that they'll need to be able to start developing tomorrow and the skills that they'll need moving forward as the CMS develops and progresses within the client. The approach that we use within Odin very much centres around creating these bespoke packages which are informed by the installation as it is now and the installation as it needs to be in the future. That way we can give the developers the training that they require so that they can complete all the steps along that path. As well as understanding the system, it's important to understand the organisation and to understand if there are any politics at work. You need to know if you're going to come across any awkward customers while you're delivering the training. Whenever a CMS is deployed within an organisation, you're going to come up against some resistance, and quite often that resistance comes in the form of the developers. They've been quite happily building their bits and pieces in PHP, and all of a sudden you've got to start telling them that they've got to use the CMS and they've got to build it using Velocity and they've got to create content types. They won't see the point. All they'll want to do is rebuild the CMS themselves, or they'll say, yes, why bother spending all of that money on one when I can develop a system for you. So an important part of the developer training, and it's something that we at Odin always try and get across, is to give the developers some understanding of the relationship that the CMS has to have not only with them as developers but also with the business and with the users, so that they can appreciate some of the other aspects, things like workflow, things like the publishing control that you can have. So an understanding of the politics at work can certainly help you when you're delivering the training to developers. So